Well, this is cool. First podcast,
Sir,
number one. Yeah.
how it got started. What do you want to give us a little backstory on the theme of the podcast?
Yeah. Um, well, this is going to be a podcast on why don't you start it? Actually, this was your idea. You were kind of the brainchild behind the whole thing. I feel like it's better if you do it.
Yeah, so obviously, being from the guiding industry, I saw things and people, obviously guiding over the years, having people talk to me about, how to hunt and how I'm successful going, say, other states or even in California on my own without having a hunting guide. And so I kind of started kicking the idea around and thought that it'd be kind of cool to start a podcast, basically, you know, based on, just solely hunting California. And, I had other people that I had in mind, but then when I obviously saw what you were doing with the Valley Project and the filming industry and doing that kind of stuff, and then you had posted that day about, being new to hunting. I thought, man, this would be a cool podcast to have somebody who obviously myself has been in the industry for a long time and you're getting into it. I thought that this would be a cool dynamic where we can relate to lots of people across the board. So that's how I came up with the idea of the podcast.
It's awesome. Well, I appreciate you thinking of me. I'm excited because I've been actually also thinking about doing very similar thing. I wanted to do it with Valley Project, but I just didn't have the time. I didn't have really anybody else that was really interested in doing it with me. And so it was something that I kind of just put on the back burner and was like, if it eventually works, it eventually works and then I can try to figure it out. And then when you approached me, I was like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted to do and from the get go. And so that was probably one of the fastest yeses that I've said. Um, yeah, but I mean, I think that there is a lot of things that we, obviously have in common, very similar interests, but we also have different perspectives, different backgrounds on it. I'm very new to hunting. I am not I would not call myself a very good hunter yet. I am in the field a lot of times, but I still have a lot to learn. And with you being pretty much growing up hunting, I'm going to be able to pick your brain and learn a lot from you and as others have while in the field with you. So, I don't know. I'm excited. I think that this is going to be very interesting. Kind of for the viewers, kind of what we're thinking for what to kind of expect from the podcast. We're wanting to talk about hunt strategies for California. We want to talk about hunt stories, both us personally as well as guests. We want to do gear stuff. We want to talk about conservation projects that are being done and just overall just build a community that us California hunters can kind of all band together and share our voices. There's a lot of issues that most I would say most hunters in California and definitely outside of California agree on, but our state does not allow. And this might be, a place that hopefully we can get to the point where we could help advocate for the state. And I would love to see, us make some real change and progress with our California hunting regulations and, um, you know, much more.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I'd like the podcast. And I know that you're wanting the podcast to go that direction where we can grow this thing to where we can get wildlife biologists on here, talk to them about their deer counts in winter ranges, obviously wolves, bears, mountain lions, you know, maybe things as us as hunters that don't understand and we think that we do. And maybe there's a reason why they don't have a season on mountain lions. You know what I mean? And obviously having a biologist here would be ideal. So certain questions like that is one of the directions we like to have this podcast. So it won't be just solely based on just hunting itself, but everything. You know what I mean? And we'd also like, the direction we'd like to have this is basically California outdoors. So it'd be hunting, fishing, ocean fishing to freshwater fishing to waterfowl to upland to big game. So it's going to be, based on everything across the board. So, all walks of life in the outdoor industry will get something from this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, why don't you start us off by, giving, you did a little bit, but a little bit more of an introduction, like where you're from and kind of give us some background.
Yeah, so my name's Preston Doherty. I'm a hunting guide for Oakstone Outfitters and Tejon Ranch. So Oakstone is based out of Bradley, California. We are about 20 minutes north of Paso Robles on the Central Coast. And then I guide for Tejon, which is on the Grapevine just south of Bakersfield on the way down to LA. At Oakstone, we guide turkeys, deer, pigs, and elk. In the Central Coast, and then as long as down in Mexico and Sonora for Coues deer and desert mule deer. So that's where basically my expertise are, is in just big game. And then obviously I do some draw tags for antelope, deer, and elk if somebody was to book me as far as on a draw tag in California. And then
So you do independent.
correct, yeah, not a lot, but I do. I've done some work for independent stuff as well. I don't do a lot of it, but I have done some.
Awesome. And are you from the Central Valley too, like born and
Correct.
raised?
Yep. So I was born in Hanford, California. Born and raised. I grew up. My dad hunted, so he started taking me when I was 5. I'm 41 now, so have about 36 years of hunting experience. I knew at a young age that this is what I wanted to do from day one. Was I wanted to be a hunting guide. But growing up in the Central Valley, obviously, we come from a farming community, so to get into hunting as a guide was pretty hard, and not knowing even how to get into that. And then I grew up in a weird generation where there was no internet really. There was, right out of high school, I mean, so to figure out how to get a hold of a guide, I mean, I just didn't know it. There was no way of like emailing somebody or like looking up on Google and being like, oh, look, there's a ton of outfitters. I'm just going to email all these people and try to get a job. So it took me till I was about 25. And then I was fortunate enough and I leased a ranch in Kalinga, and they had a little guide service. And then I started guiding for them. And then in 2020, I left them and then went to Oakstone full time and started guiding there. And then in 2023 is when I went to start working for Tejon as well. And so that's kind of how I got into guiding. Was I leased the ranch in Kalinga for my personal self hunting for deer, and then they ended up needing a hunting guide, and so I went and kind of shadowed a couple hunts, and then realized I was like, man, dude, I love this. Like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And then got my guide license, and then went from there and haven't looked back since. And that's kind of how I got myself into the guiding. I just kind of fell into it. It wasn't like I just knew I was in the right place at the right time and knew the right people, and kind of got me into the career that I went. And so, and then, always being passionate about the outdoors. I mean, I was started off hunting D7 above Shaver Lake with my dad. And then we would hunt Fort Hunter Liggett for A zone. And so like, that's kind of where I started hunting. And then obviously after a while, I got kind of over D7. I didn't really care for hunting timber, which is not my style of hunting. And then I just went strictly back to A zone. And that's kind of where I've hunted for the last, 20 years straight. Has been strictly Central Coast. Obviously, then out of state, but that's where I hunt in California, is mainly A zone. So, but that's pretty much how I got started, and where I got started was my dad was taking me, and then, then I got into the guiding, and just kind of pushed my career and my hunting in the right direction. And as far as, getting to see some cool country, meeting some cool people, and really helped me along the way, and met some really good hunters that have, I've tried to learn from and take some trips, tips and tricks from them and from the trade, and, kind of mold me into who I am today.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So where did you grow up, and how did you get into hunting?
I did not grow up in a hunting family or pretty much know anybody that really hunted for the most part. I was born in Orange County and then kind of raised up in the Bay Area. And my family we own a ranch. My great grandpa purchased it about 50 years ago. And so it's been in my family for a not very long time, but a long time. And so I grew up here my entire life, kind of coming here for vacations. But my dad not hunting, my grandpa's, nobody hunted. So I never got into it. Kind of around college time frame, I was up here and Ed, our ranch manager, was like, "Hey, like you need to start hunting. Like you should go get a pig tag. I'll take you out and we'll just try it and you see what you think." And so I did and came up here with one of my buddies and he took us out hunting and I got a pig and I was just like, holy smokes, this is so much fun. I'm like eating it that night and it like totally changed like my upbringing was like, holy smokes, how have I not done this my entire life? And so that was just kind of towards the end-ish or middle of 2019. So I guess I'm coming up on 6 years now. But yeah, I'm off the bandwagon now. I'm full into just spending as much time as I possibly can outside and learning different species. And pigs was pretty easy for me to pick up on because that's the main animal that we hunt on the ranch. But most recently started getting into deer and just trying to figure that out. That's very difficult, but I just love it. I just spend all my time out there and running around. And now I worked one summer up in the High Sierra, so I packed mules for a summer and just absolutely fell in love with the high country. So I've done a couple trips for deer up there and bears and stuff, and just trying to figure out some of the local public land areas. And I just love hunting, whether it's on private or public. Like I've actually spent more time on public this year so far than I have on private, but just nothing really excites me yet, quite yet. So I'm kind of holding off. Got 2 weeks left, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I just kind of got into it with a late start, but I know this is kind of what I want to do for the rest of my life. And, I got into conservation after moving from Orange County. So I fell in love with the ranch during COVID and was like, yep, this is what I want to do. I quit my job down south, came up here. I worked for a farming company, and then I ended up quitting that job and moving into a conservation agency. So I help farmers and ranchers with grant funding and implementing conservation projects on their properties. And then I now most recently have started my own media production company, which is what Valley Project is kind of working with. And yeah, I just want to be, completely immersed in the outdoors. So
With your media project, like your media company, what exactly are you like? What is your goal with that?
I want to be, I mean, this is a big goal, but what I want to be is I want to be the go-to content creation and marketing company for the hunting industry. So I want to be doing, the commercials for hunting brands and outdoor brands. That's kind of my main focus to eventually get to. So that's all the content creation stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a new process. I did not grow up knowing how to film, but I've now started to really have a passion for it because I feel like I'm in a way like hunting without a gun, but I'm still able to like you still do the same things. You're pursuing the animals, you're taking photos, you're shooting a video. If it's not me behind the gun and I'm behind the camera, like I'm just as happy as if I was behind the gun.
Oh, and I know exactly how you feel because, like, in guiding, we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Like, it's still the same. It's like the same excitement because I'm not obviously pulling the trigger. You're not pulling the trigger. You know what I mean? You're behind a video camera, and I'm usually over somebody's shoulder. You know, and I always tell people it's like in your situation, my situation, like we have the best seats in the house. We got front row tickets every
Yep.
single time. So
And then
now with you filming for the, oh, go ahead.
their excitement, like just seeing their reactions, being able to like I've experienced, shooting a deer, I've experienced shooting pigs, I've experienced shooting turkeys, but to now see like, you know, other people like my brother who is very, very new to hunting, I love taking him out. I love taking my fiance out. Like just seeing their excitement and capturing that on camera. Yeah, I'm sure that's what you feel. The exact
Yeah,
same way.
what's cool with your deal is like you capture that and it's a lifetime because obviously you've got it on film, you know. For me, like, you know, I lots of memories. Never don't catch much on the film or you know what I mean, or my filming is through usually an iPhone and or through a you know some kind of a phone adapter on your binoculars or your you know. But no, I think what you're doing with Valley Projects is a pretty phenomenal deal. You know, that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you was is I felt like, man, like, I really enjoy seeing somebody has the same passion that I do, like capturing those.
Sorry, my mic fell. But yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve for sure, but I'm figuring out slowly but surely.
So now, how long have you been doing Valley Project?
Just over a year from our my very first video. So that's what's kind of crazy is like I started with my buddy Travis, and he had a camera, and I have a ranch. We both love to hunt. And so we would always come out here and we would go to a couple of our other friends' ranches and go around on public land and just kind of run around and do what we're doing. And I was like, dude, like, you have a camera. Like, why don't we film some of this and like make a little channel? And he's very talented. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we started making like, we made a scouting video and we did a couple other stuff and it just kind of took off from there. And me being me, I'm very business oriented. So I'm like, well, if I'm putting any sort of effort into this, I need something in return. And I'm like, I have a passion for it and I want to make money with it. And so that's kind of how it all took off. And, you know, we've been able to kind of grow it fairly quickly. You know, with thank you, Go Hunt has helped a lot with just you know helping point me in the right direction and just being a good resource to me. And I was able to take them out on a hog hunt in February. So within like 3 months or 4 months of actually starting Valley Project, we were going on a hunt with Brady Miller and Lane and Joe, and it just kind of snowballed after that. I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, this is what I want to do.
You know
So,
what's crazy too is like that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like very often. Like I feel like you like took a detour and skipped a lot of steps and found you know like a shortcut and went around a long road, like a long bumpy road that most people take years to get to. But I feel like it's because the way like when you and I were talking, you know, privately when we first met, when it was like how you marketed yourself, you know what I mean? Like and how you kind of got the guys to come out and, you know, go hunting with you. You know what I mean? And so it's like I've always been a firm believer, it's not what you know, it's who you know and how you market yourself and in anything, you know. And so like it's pretty cool that that's where you got your, you know, in would you say 5 months of starting
yeah,
it, you got
pretty,
into yeah, you
yeah,
know. And it's crazy too is like a lot of people can get that opportunity and fumble it. You know what I mean? And like they get that 15 minutes of fame and did one cool thing with, you know, some high profile people and then nothing. And it's done. You know what I mean? But it seems like with you, you've taken that and you ran with it and you're going in the right direction with Valley Projects. And it's pretty cool to, you know, see that grow in the last few months of us, you know, meeting you on social media. And I think that's pretty cool what you've done with that company and where you're headed.
thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited to grow it and continue having people on, and you know, with the podcast, being able to incorporate podcasts into you know some of these business meetings and stuff.
Right.
I think we'll start to see a lot of growth on both ends, and same with your guiding business. I think
Yeah.
that this is great.
Well, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, you know, from both sides, from guys that are super experienced that just like listening about hunting or talking about hunting to guys that are in your situation who have just started, who, you know what I mean, have no, maybe not any clue or very little clue on what they're doing and how to hunt. You know what I mean? And so it's like, and that's what I'm excited about this podcast and what we're doing is teaching people obviously, how to piece the whole puzzle together. Because I feel like sometimes you got people that, can cook really well but can't read the recipe, or can read the recipe and can't cook. Then it's like, how do you get them together? So it's like when hunting, it's like it's a big puzzle. And once you have all those pieces together, then it becomes really easy. And it's actually, you could hunt anywhere. You know what I mean? That's like when you and I were talking about starting this podcast, was it's like good California hunters make good hunters in any state. I mean, all the time. Everybody that I know that is a very successful hunter goes out of state and will kill big animals every single time, and will very rarely come back with a tag unless they chose to come back with a tag. So, our goal here is to push this, in the right direction, and hopefully give some light to some stuff that maybe people just don't know.
What do you think the biggest factor, like being successful here and then translating it into another state? Is that the terrain, or is that just because the terrain, lack of animals, or like?
I think well, California is a sleeper state. We have really big animals, and we have a lot of different animals that you can hunt. Obviously, some of those animals are a lot harder to hunt. Either they're very expensive to buy a private land management tag, or it's really hard to draw the tag. You know what I mean? Like, to shoot an elk in our state, you have to have max points of 24 years, or you can get lucky and draw one of the random tags. But, what I've noticed with guys that are really good is we have such a diverse state of how to hunt deer, because we have deer that migrate, deer that don't migrate, you know what I mean, to deer that are on the coast all the way to the high Sierras at 12,000 feet, to deer that migrate, the deer that don't migrate, to desert sheep, to all three species of elk, to antelope, to bears. So I think what happens is when guys in California hunt and they're hard hunters, what they do is they end up piecing this puzzle together, and they figure out how animals work. And so the good thing is like, if you say go to Colorado and you're hunting a unit that's from 13,000 feet down to 5,000 feet, well, we're used to hunting that terrain as it is already when you're when they're coming out of the Sierra Nevadas. So weather dependent, you know what I mean? So we're used to finding deer. If it hasn't snowed yet, they're going to be high. We'll start high, and then we kind of work our way down, in elevation until we start finding a concentration of deer. But, and so like some of the podcasts that we'll get into is basically teaching you how to like read terrain. Why are the animals in that area? Why are they at 7,000 feet? What's the feed like? Is there a lot of feed, water? What are they feeding on? Acorns? You know what I mean? Wind is a big thing that blows. Like, a lot of people think, oh, snow dries them out of the high country. Well, it doesn't. It does, but wind will dry out the feed. And when water dries up, as it gets hot, the water comes down off the mountain. And so those deer are going to leave once the feed dries out and water dries up. And they're just going to move down to the next stage of where feed is. It's not like they're going to bail off from 9,000 feet and go all the way down to 3,000 feet. But they're going to hit maybe from 9,000 to say 7,000. That's where the next feed is. And then as winter comes, they, continue to move down. But, these are things that that I'm excited about talking about and passionate about, and trying to teach people what makes people successful states, especially hunting in California. Because it's such a hard state to hunt as it is already.
I have a couple bucks on the ranch that I'm interested in, that I've been looking for. I was really hoping for maybe some more migratory bucks coming in off the mountain from that big snowstorm, but with it only being pretty much one day, and I don't think it was enough. So, yeah, I'm going to keep looking for those two. But on public land, I have seen a handful of small bucks, most of them spikes and forkies, and then quite a few does, but nothing that really got me going. I did see a bear, so I've been seeing lots of bears. Man, holy smokes. The amount of bears I've been just seeing in general. I just feel like with that storm, maybe some are pushing down, or this cold snap is really like starting to make them move more. I'm not 100% sure, but I am seeing a whole bunch of them all over the place right now, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of buddies that have been absolutely in the thick of the deer. I just don't have the time with work and starting the business to go up as high as they are. So I stay more local, but I'm still seeing stuff. Just nothing of the caliber that I'm after so far.
I mean, have you noticed anything like with bears? Is this the most bears you've seen in the last few years, or?
I have a couple cameras out. I think I have on one camera, there's at least 3 to 4 different bears on the one. On public, I spotted a few that's not too far away. And then I got a couple other cameras with some different bears. So I would think right now there's probably roughly 10 bears that I know about right around there on the ranch. And then I'm going to go back into that, try to make my way. So I tag out on a buck here. I'll go back to public land for the last couple days, and I'm going to probably hunt that same area that I saw that big bear in if I don't get the other bear that I saw here. So there's two big bears that I know about. I know kind of where they're at. So I'm trying to just plan my time accordingly and see if I can get on them.
So a lot of people that hunt like the Sierra Nevadas for bears on the east side, I've got a lot of guys that are like, man, I just never see bears. And I'm like, well, it's because you're too high. Archery season, obviously a lot of guys see bears in the high country. You know what I mean? It's still green. Those, bears obviously are a lot like pigs. They're opportunistic. I mean, they're a predator, but they're omnivores. So they're going to eat, they're going to eat green grass, bugs, berries. And as that stuff, like what I was saying earlier, when it dries out, a lot of guys don't realize this, but a lot of those bears move down in that between 3,000 to 5,000. And why they do that is because there's acorns. And so those bears come down. Acorns is a very high fat content of food for elk, deer, and pigs. Deer, obviously, and elk prefer to have acorns that are green. That's why you'll see them up in the oaks, pulling acorns off. Bears and pigs don't really matter. They'll eat them, if they're brown or green or however if they're on the ground, they're just going to eat them. So a lot of people I don't think realize that. It's like if you can find that 3,000 to 5,000 feet, and if you're really wanting a bear, between the month of October and November is the time to find them because they're on acorns. So I always tell people, as if you're hunting, like if you're going to be solely based on bears, like what you were saying, like have you seen some bears and you're trying to back up or find them and kill them? I tell people all the time, it's like, take no note, like when you're hiking around the hills, you look over and you're like, man, you're loaded with acorns. Remember that because if those acorns start dropping, pigs are going to be all over those. It's bears. It's over the deer. Like I don't know if you notice on your ranch, like if you start seeing a bunch of oak trees with acorns come right now in fall when those things are dropping, realistically, that's probably where you see most of your pigs.
Yep.
And same thing with bears. The bears love acorns. So right now they're trying to fatten back up for the winter to come. I mean, our bears really don't hibernate like other states. We just don't get cold enough. I mean, it's the beauty of California. We only have like two weathers. It's nice and hot. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, that's the thing though.
There are bears that hibernate up high. I feel
Up
like
high, right. But the
really,
majority of our bears, they don't, like Northern California, I would assume that, yeah, some of those, but like here in the central part of California, like, they go down that low country, and we don't get enough weather for them to really hibernate. They get lazy, you know what I mean? They're not as active, you know what I mean? But they're not going to go to bed and just spend 4 months, and then come back out like they would in other states or up in Northern California.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about what kind of hunting you've been doing recently. Any personal hunts?
Well, I had a really cool hunt this year. I was fortunate enough in 2023. I guided a guy, which he wants to be anonymous, so I'm going to leave. I'm just not going to mention his name. Obviously, if he listens to the podcast, he knows who he is, and thank you, by the way. I guided a guy on a management deer hunt at Tejon, and he shot a really nice forward horn with me. And then he called me back a couple months later and had asked me what was my dream hunt. And so I had told him at a young age, at 7 is when I saw my first tule elk. And so I told him that, my dream hunt was to be a tule elk. And if anybody knows me personally, would tell you if like, oh, it's Preston's, dream hunt. And they would say tule elk. So he was gracious enough to buy me a landowner tag. And so this year I went to Oakstone, and this was probably one of the most hunts that I have ever been prepared for in my life. Matter of fact, I felt bad for my kids because, obviously during summer vacation, they didn't have school. So we were over on the coast almost every day scouting looking for elk. I mean, my kids are 6 and 4, and I was keeping them up from like get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and run till dark. At any chance I got, I would sneak away and go back, check trail cameras, hanging trail cameras, scouting. And so the end of June, the beginning of July, I was lucky enough and I turned up a really big typical 6, and he was on the neighbors. And he was with 2 other bulls, which we ended up killing the 2 of those out of the 3. We ended up killing 2 of those bulls. And so I saw him for about 30 minutes, and then that was the last time I ever laid eyes on him for a month and a half, almost 2 months, and could not find him. And then the morning of my hunt, I went out to scout before the other guy that was going to be on the hunt with me showed up, and I ended up turning that bull up. And to walk away from him was rough, but I had made a promise to the guy that I was hunting with that I told him, I said, I am not going to shoot a bull unless you were there. Like, it's not going to happen. And, obviously guiding people before that for other elk, and I would be lying if I didn't say like I was hoping that bull just did not show up. I mean, obviously if he did, I was going to do my job, and, we would get him killed, and I would just have to find another bull. But he ended up showing up. We put him to bed. We left him. And then as soon as my buddy showed up, we went out, and I ended up bumping that bull in an area that we've never seen elk in. So long story short, I thought that he would just kind of push his cows down and just kind of stop. Obviously they don't get hunted very often with Thule elk. And he was on a mission to go back to the neighbors. And so at that point I thought, I'm not going to get this bull. Hunter and I ended up looping around, and one of our other buddies, Jake Mitchell, and my buddy Jason Orloff stayed up on point, and were able to, keep eyes on him and kind of fill us in on where they were headed. And we were able to hike in there, and I shouldn't say hike, we ran in there, and I got him shot about 100 yards before he made it on the neighbors. And it's kind of a funny story. So when we got to where I was going to shoot the bull, the cows were feeding over the hill, and we were able to get out, and I laid out prone, and we were sitting there. And I still remember this because, I waited 33 years to shoot a Thule elk. And I remember as he was coming over the hill, I looked at Hunter and I had a huge smile on my face. And I remember I told him, I said, I waited 33 years to do this. I was like, and we're about to kill this bull in about 30 seconds. And so I remember I just closed my eyes, and that bull comes out and stops. And I remember I opened my eyes up, and that bull is standing in my scope. And I just said, this is for Reed and Knox, which are my boys. And I slowly squeezed off the rifle, and my gun goes click. I had taken a round out when we ran up the hill, and I forgot to put one back in. And I was like, well, I figured this was going to probably happen. I was going to screw my only one opportunity up. And so I was able to jack the round in real quick. And then Hunter Cal called him, and he stopped him at 161 yards and slightly quartered away. And I just absolutely 10-ring that bull. And he went about 50 yards and fell over dead. And it was a weird feeling, because when you wait for 33 years to do something and it finally happened, it was like a bittersweet feeling. It was a very emotional hunt for me, because as I walked up to that bull, I realized it's done. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I got more into the hunting Thule elk or if I got more into the one day I'm going to hunt Thule elk. And I think I was one of those days where it's one day I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to do it. And I knew that there was probably never a chance that I would ever get that moment. And that's one of the reasons why I got into guiding, was I wanted to devote my life. I fell in love with those. Those are my favorite animals to hunt. They are very special to me, and I love Thule elk. And because they're only found in California, you cannot shoot them anywhere else. And so it's pretty cool to be part of that experience, to see people come from all over the world to come to Central California to shoot Thule elk. And to be part of that is pretty awesome. And to be such a small, probably 1% of the population of hunting that gets to hang a tag on one of those animals was pretty unreal. It was awesome. And I just remember walking up to the bull, and all these emotions were going through my head. And I just remember thinking man, I'm done. You know what I mean? I waited all these years, and it's just it's finally over. And so it's just I don't know. It was a hard when the guy that obviously my buddy that purchased the tag for me came up to me and he's like, "How do you feel?" And I told him I was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And I would be lying if I didn't tag. I cried like a baby, but it was by myself, so you know. But it was just like it's just a hard. It's a hard. It's hard to explain like the feeling. When you want something so bad and then it happens, it's just like man, and then it's done. So the cool thing is next year I'm going to do a Roosevelt hunt. So I decided I'm like, well, instead of keep putting in for Tule elk, I thought it'd be cool to put in for the northeastern tag and try to get a Rocky. And so then I would thought it'd be kind of cool to get the elk slam all from California. So that's kind of like where my new goal is now. You know what I mean? Like, so, and then once I finished that up, then, obviously I hunted the coast, the A zone. And fortunate enough, I turned up a buck early September and, not a giant, but a good buck, like an 18 by 15 inch forward horn and, happened to catch him, rutting does. This was a weird rut this year. I mean, I saw bucks September 1st rutting. Normally we get that the last week or two, week and a half, but, I caught this buck. He was rutting 4 does and I was able to slip in and then, he was 120 yards. And, when I got up there and was getting ready to shoot, I was like, oh, he's going to leave. I kind of rushed I missed him the first shot. And then he turned and kind of running down the hill. And then I was able to put him down. My buddy goes, "Oh, you missed." I said, "Well, nobody likes shooting once. And one time is kind of boring. Sometimes you gotta blaze away." But so I've had a great season so far. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get a Tule elk. I've shot 4 pigs this year and a buck, and then in a week and a half, I'm leaving for Kodiak Island to go hunt Sitka blacktail. So this is probably one of the most epic years that I've ever had for hunting. Because obviously with guiding, like I don't get much time to hunt for myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, I gotta, and then being a father, you gotta delegate your time, and so trying to take a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old hunting with you is miserable. Sometimes.
Man.
Logistically, it is pretty hard to get them, one, to get them there, and then two, to get them to be quiet. And then you got to make sure that, my oldest doesn't like sleeping in the pickup, or he won't. He'll get FOMO. He's fear of missing out. So he'll stay awake. My youngest will just crash out periodically and just keep waking up, and he's easy. But my oldest, obviously has to stay awake. So by the time 5 o'clock comes around, then he is spent and he's not much fun. So, but I was able to sneak in a few hunts this year and it worked out pretty good. And so here in a half, I leave for it'd be kind of cool to finish out on a high note with a Sitka blacktail, which that will be my second that I will need for my swing on here.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I don't have I mean I had a couple trips planned for this year, but nothing like I had a high country deer hunt that kind of just failed miserably. My friend Matt that came along with me, he got hurt on that trip, so we had to turn around the next day and pack out. But we were about 15 miles back and we went in on horseback. So that was a big bummer. But he's okay. He's recovering. Then obviously my deer hunt here on the ranch. And then I'm going to Nebraska for a muzzleloader hunt in the beginning of December. And I'm excited
That's
about
gonna be a fun hunt.
Yeah.
You gonna have a mule deer?
Yep. It's a mule deer whitetail tag, so it's a either or.
Or
I'm going for a mule deer. There's some giants. The guy sending me pictures, and I was sending him pictures of, our biggest bucks here, and he's like, "Oh, I see things like that all the time. Like, you should be able to find something, really good." And I'm like, "Holy smokes, okay." Then he sent me like a picture of a 6x4 that it was an absolute giant that got tangled in a fence and died.
oh,
Had poly wire all wrapped around his antlers, and he goes, "Look what I just found today." I'm like, dude, he was like, we don't get many deer like this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, looking at it, it was a 200-inch mule deer, 100%. Had a big old inline right in the middle and just huge, just huge. I'll send you the picture. I mean, it is an absolute giant. But, you know, he's right. He's got a perfect property right along a river, and it's just a migration corridor for him to
Are you
come
going?
right.
You going? Which is the nutty?
Well, it's his ranch, so it's my buddy's. It's my friend's ranch, and I'm going with my buddy Matt and then my fiance, and
Well,
so
that's
we're
gonna be
gonna
fun.
go out there for
Is this
10
your
days.
first out-of-state trip?
I'm sorry.
Is this your first out of state trip?
No, I've done a couple. Well, with the tag in my pocket, yes.
Right. Yeah.
I've gone other places. I go to Utah pretty much every year to help my buddy with the elk tag, but with a tag in my pocket, this is my first. No, second. I've hunted before, but never got anything. This is probably my best chance to actually tag out on something.
Right.
So, yeah,
Well, that's gonna be a fun trip, especially in December. It's gonna be colder than hell, but better
yeah.
dress warm.
I'm gonna go in the beginning of December. The guy's giving me a whole month to be there if I want, but I'm only gonna go for the first 10 days ish is my plan. But yeah, it's
You know how that
gonna
goes, though.
yeah.
You'll extend it if you have to.
If I have to, I will. Yeah.
Right.
But my problem is that I might have a shoot in Miami, so I might be driving back, and then have to fly to Miami, and then I have to do another potential shoot in Arizona. So I'm like busy.
You do though. You bring your gun with you. You fly to Miami, shoot. You got time, fly through Nebraska, land
There you
in a couple days, and then fly into Arizona.
There you go.
You know,
I have to figure it out.
sometimes you gotta make it work for big bucks.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna take the time that I need to get something nice. And yeah,
I can't wait to see what you get on that deal. That's gonna be a fun one.
it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. Going back to your gun click story, 2 days ago we were up here. I was with my buddy Matt, and we were running around, and I go, okay, I'm gonna take you to this hillside. He can't hardly walk, so I have to. We're driving him down the road, and I'm just gonna put him in his spot that he needed to be at to glass for the evening. And on our way to that spot, he goes, "Dude, there's a bear." And I go, "What?" And so we hop out, walk down the ways, set up, and we start glassing this hillside. And sure enough, this bear, he had just walked through the brush just enough for him to see. And it was like 500 and something yards that he was able to pick it up on the move in the side by side. I'm like, yo, how did you even see that? And that thing just came down, and it just kept getting closer and closer, and he was ranging it for me, walking it in. He's like, wait for it to stop. And I'm all steady, I'm nice, and just felt perfect. And it stops, and I go, what is it? 50. Click. And I just like right at the same time, and I'm just like, no. And we both talked about it after, and it was a giant bear, and I've got pictures and stuff from that night, it going to right by one of my cameras, and that thing has to be 400 pounds. Has to be. I mean, I killed a roughly 500-pound bear. Actually, you can kind of see the skull right there. That skull measured what, 20 and a half, or I believe
That's a good
20 and a
bear.
half inches. Yeah,
That's a great bear.
yeah, 20 and a half. So I remember very clearly that thing was 7 feet tall. And then I think it was just over 500 pounds. It was a giant bear. And then we were looking at how old that bear was, and it was 5 years old. Was what
Really?
the tooth results came back. Crazy.
Yeah.
Just a freak of nature. Just a freak, but yeah, I mean,
Turn it back up.
yeah, I'm gonna be working to turn it back up, but I need a buck first.
You know what's going to happen, right? I tell people this all the time. You're going to shoot a buck in a hole, and you're going to have to pack him out. And then on your way out, you're going to see that bear and kill him, and he'll be down in a hole. And then you're going to have to pack him out, and it's going to be one of those most brutal days, but an epic day.
Oh yeah, I hope you're right, because then on the way out, and we're putting everything in, we're putting it into the side by side or whatever, and then we're gonna drive by some pigs too, and I'm like, why not?
If you do that, you got to get the Roth slam.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get the bear, your buck, and your boar.
There you go. That would be wild, man.
Yeah, that's the only time that I would actually be cool if somebody said BBD. Because then that would be bear, boar, and deer down.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm the type. A lot of people don't realize. I like bringing my hunts down to the wire. Like I feel like at that point, then you get your you get your whole season like a whole season's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I say that because I'm already tagged out. It's probably a lot easier to say that. You're probably going, no, I would have liked to have had this done a little bit of.
Well, I passed on the deer I'm now looking for on opening morning. I had him in my crosshair, 225 yards, and I passed on him. I was like, it's day one. Why would I do that? And I watched him for the next couple weeks. And then, obviously, as it gets into the middle of October, those bucks are now hard-horned and they kind of disappear. And I haven't seen him. And so I'm kind of starting to panic because that storm that I was really banking on did not quite turn out as well as I thought for our location. Right. So I'm kind of like panicking a little bit on the inside. I'm trying not to scream, but there's plenty of nice deer. I will find something. And so I have another buck that is technically a 4x3, but he's kind of weak on the fourth and the third point, but he's a good buck, big body and unique. And I love those unique bucks. So
yeah,
I'm not against it.
Well, and too, like you're in private. So, I mean, obviously some guys, that hunt public would be like, well, what is your problem? Like, why would you pass on those deer? And it's like, well, obviously you and your brother are the only ones that get to hunt deer there. So, for you guys, it's like, okay, well, if he makes it through the winter, a lion doesn't get him, a bear doesn't get him, you know what I mean? Or if he makes it through, one of the neighbors doesn't shoot him, he'll be there next year. And then obviously he's going to be bigger, you know what I mean? And so like, I've had a lot of seasons, dude, where I've passed on some deer I probably should have shot in the beginning. And I thought, I could probably do better, because it's one of those, I'm sure that 3-pointer is probably one of those bucks that's like, it's not a no-brainer, but it's a nice buck, you know what I mean? And obviously hunting private's a little different than hunting public, or, I know guys that will pass on deer in public. But it's one of those things where it's like those right on the cusp of deer are kind of hard because it's like, he's nice, but I think I could do better, And then I'm halfway through the season now. He went from being okay to like, oh man, should have shot him. And then you can't find him.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have still a long time.
I got time. I'm going out this weekend, and it's just kind of you gotta hunt. I mean, people are always like, "Oh, you hunt private and da da da." Like it's so easy, and it's like, yeah, you can kill a buck easy. Yeah, I could shoot a deer almost every single day. But the problem is why would I shoot that deer? Like I'm looking for the right deer, whether it's the size or trying to get rid of or mitigate some of the genetics that we're seeing. So there's a reason why I shoot a deer. I'm not just shooting a deer to shoot a deer. And that's, I think, a conversation, that we can get into for probably a whole nother podcast.
That'd be cool.
I really, truly believe that people just, there's so many, different beliefs that people just, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, people don't understand.
Coming from a guide and also hunting private and public, a lot of people get the wrong idea when it comes to private property. They think like as soon as you open the gate, like you drive through, there's just deer laying under every tree. You just like drive by and you're like, that one. That's the one I'm going to shoot right there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's not hunting. Well, what they don't realize is like a big buck. Like when you hear guys like, oh, bucks are super smart. Like they know when it's hunting season. Deer don't know what today was, and they don't know what tomorrow is, or the day before that, or the day after that. Today is a new day, and every day they wake up and they're going to do the same thing. A big buck is lazy. He knows what's coming, the rep. And so he is going to conserve as much energy as he possibly can. And they're lazy. So they're going to lay there all day. That's why when you see pictures of big bucks, majority of the time they're going to be at night. They're going to lay there all day. And if they don't have to get up, they don't have to get up. So somebody who wants private, what they don't realize is you can get a buck, especially like on the east side, there's a lot of rocks, especially in the lower country. A buck can go lay in a rock pile somewhere and not get up all day, and you're never going to see him unless you jump that deer. But then you got to be careful too, because it depends on how big your property is. You could have a ranch that say is 1,000 acres. You could blow 1,000 acres up real quick. So if you have one deer that you know is living on you, and you start pushing that deer and bumping him, you're going to blow him out of there, and he's going to go on the neighbors and won't come back. And then he'll be completely nocturnal, and then there's nothing you can do. So like when people hunt private to public, it's kind of crazy because, you jump a deer and he goes over one canyon. Realistically, you can just go to the next canyon and go hunt him. Well, if you're hunting private and you jump him and he goes to the next canyon over, that's your neighbors. Well, if you don't have permission, you might as well be good as gone. He's gone. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so I think, like you were saying, I think a lot of people, think like, well, you hunt private, so you just drive in there and it's just like a pick of the litter. You can shoot little bucks like that, but finding the right buck is like hunting for a buck in public. You know what I mean? You're finding the needle in the haystack.
Yeah, it's hard hunting, and the amount of hours that I spend and that me and my buddies come up and we just love glassing. So we take we've done so many hikes and different glass and vantage points and like just really trying to figure out the ranch, which is just fun. It's totally different, and so I'm really looking forward to spending more time here and then going out. I've been going out with them a lot to some of their public land spots and, trying out some spots of my own and just trying to, learn something. I mean, it's just fun. Like, I just love being outside and I don't really care where we're at. And, I just want to just hunt.
Hunting's fun. That's why I chose to do it.
Just
Yeah. It's cool. Is like you were saying, like you just love it and love glass stuff. And it's like, you have all season to find the right buck. You know what I mean? And so it's like, sometimes it's nice for me, like when I'm not guiding and I just get to hunt for myself, it's kind of fun. It's like relaxing almost. Because for me, I have 5 days to find the right buck. Now, sometimes granted, we have bucks that we know about and we can get them killed fairly quickly. But a lot of times we do not. You're hoping and prayer that you can find him, and you got a guy that has, obviously put all this trust in him for 5 days to find him a big buck, and come day 3, you're like, as a guy, you're thinking in your head, you're like, oh shit, I got 2 more days to find a deer, and it puts a lot of pressure on being able to perform at a high level 100% of the time, So you can have off days, but you can't be off all the time either. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You gotta be on Johnny on the spot most of the time. So, it's kind of funny. Like, it's like, I forget that kind of stuff. Cause like when you were talking about it right now and you're like, I love glassing and look for big bucks and, hunting all season. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I haven't done that in a long time. I usually have a short little gap in the window of like, I got to find it,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think honestly for our next podcast, maybe we can talk about some of the differences with public and private. And
oh yeah, I think that'd be a great one. Yeah, and that one usually seems to be like a touchy subject with certain people. You know what I mean? That one usually gets people, it's like talking politics. You know what I mean? Like that seems to be like the public private thing seems to be one of those deals where people just get like either are 100% against it, or they don't understand it, or you know what I mean, like, or they're jealous because they don't get to hunt private. And this person's hunting private, or like. So I think that would be a great second episode to talk about. It's the difference and the similarities of hunting private and public.
Well, I think that was a great first podcast.
Yeah,
it was awesome. We're right on the money with timing, and yeah, that's awesome. We're looking forward to doing this every couple weeks. Hopefully every other week we can get an episode out. So
yeah. And obviously with our hunts coming up, and then have a couple of podcasts. We can talk about our hunts coming up, after we get back from Alaska and you, Nebraska. And, maybe give some tips and tricks of what worked for us in those states and maybe help somebody else out if they go there.
Yeah, that sounds good.